Good day, dear friends and colleagues. Today I'd like to describe phacoemulsification which I performed in an eye which had post-herpetic sequelae. You can see that there was a band of atrophic sphincter sclerosis extending from 6 to 10 o'clock position. There was patchy areas of iris atrophy which showed transillumination defects and nebulo-macular grade of corneal opacity. The vision was just hand movements and projection was good, and after ensuring that the patient was quiet with respect to anterior chamber inflammation for at least 4 months, he was taken up for phacoemulsification. The intraocular pressure was found to be normal. It's important that in these cases that we stain the anterior capsule. I am contemplating the use of either iris hooks or intraocular pupil dilating devices if I need to, and I have kept them standby. However, in spite of the area of the sphincter sclerosis, I feel that the pupillary dilatation, even though it is oval, is large enough for me to successfully perform phacoemulsification using the direct chop. So sizing the capsular rhexis is important. We need to get a size of capsular rhexis which is as large as is possible given the fact that we have a small pupil to deal with. So I achieve this by carrying the rhexis under the pupillary edge. It's also very important to perform hydrodissection very carefully because the passage of the fluid wave is definitely not visible in this patient. We do not want to put unnecessary stretch on the zonules while trying to rotate a nucleus because of inadequate cortical cleavage hydrodissection. There is no posterior synechiae, and I decide that I can carry on with phacoemulsification without having to dilate the pupil by artificial means. So bury the tip, direct phaco chop using a sharp tip chopper, break the nucleus down into small fragments. Hold, initiate the crack, hold the split portion of the nucleus, take the sharp tip chopper deep into the crack and separate it using a parallel maneuver. So I break this nucleus down into at least 6 pieces to multiple small pieces, and then when I find that the pieces are small enough, I mobilize them, bring them to the safe zone, and using a pulse phaco mode, the pieces are removed by phacoemulsification. So you can see that even though the patient had corneal opacity that was nebulo-macular grade, which was covering more than 50% of the corneal surface, the density of corneal opacity was not to such an extent that it was actually hampering the view of anterior chamber details. So that's it, phacoemulsification is completed. Another important or interesting thing that I noticed in this patient is the iris. If there was ever an entity that is opposite to floppy iris, this is it. The iris was stiff, it was immobile, and it remained stationary. You can see that at the end of the phacoemulsification, there is not even a slight narrowing of the pupil. This is because the sphincter sclerosis keeps the pupil rigid. You can see that the iris does not even show fluttering during phacoemulsification or during coaxial IA. So I just retract this iris to make sure that I have satisfactorily removed all the cortical remnants from within the capsular bag, and now it's time for me to implant the intraocular lens. The choice of intraocular lens is definitely a hydrophobic acrylic lens, and if you have a heparin coated surface, as certain manufacturers will provide, then it is a good option. In this particular patient, I'm using the Technis 1 lens, which is a hydrophobic acrylic lens made by AMO, a lens which I like a lot, mostly because of the high Abbe number and extremely low chromatic aberration that this lens has, which will give a much better quality of vision, I think, in this patient who is definitely going to have impaired contrast because of the corneal opacity. So what the whitest thing that you can see is actually the nebular grade opacity on the corneal surface. There is no residual cortex left behind. Finally, the wound is sealed by butt compression and by injecting saline. You can see how the main incision is getting hydrated while I hydrate the side port. This was the appearance of the patient on the first post-operative day slit lamp photograph. The vision surprisingly improved to 6/12. Unaided with a pinhole, it was improving to 6/9. Thank you so much for your attention.